Marcus pushed his cleaning cart down the long corridor of the Meridian space station. The wheels squeaked softly against the metal floor. He had been working as a maintenance cleaner for 5 years now, and every day felt the same. He would clean the halls, empty the trash bins, wipe down the windows, and then go back to his small room to sleep. Nobody noticed him. Nobody talked to him. He was just the quiet man with the broom and the mop. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Marcus was pushing his cart toward the lower cargo bay, a section of the station that barely anyone visited anymore. The station was old, and this part had not been used in months. As he walked down the dimly lit corridor, he heard something that made him stop. It was a soft sound, almost like a whimper, coming from one of the storage rooms. Marcus pushed open the heavy metal door and peered inside. His eyes took a moment to adjust to the darkness. Then he saw it. A small creature was huddled in the corner between 2 large cargo containers. At first, Marcus thought it might be an injured animal from one of the research labs. But as his eyes adjusted, he realized it was something far more unusual. It was a dragon. The dragon was small, no bigger than a house cat. Its scales were a shimmering mix of emerald green and soft gold, and they caught the light like precious gems. The creature's wings were folded against its back, and its long tail wrapped around its small body. The dragon's eyes were bright and intelligent, watching Marcus with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Despite its small size, there was something ancient and wise about the way it looked at him. Marcus had heard stories about dragons. The crew members sometimes talked about them in the cafeteria. They said that dragons were intelligent creatures from a distant world, and that they were rare and valuable. But Marcus had never actually seen one before. He stood very still, not wanting to frighten the animal. The dragon did not move. It simply watched Marcus, its chest rising and falling with quick, nervous breaths. Marcus noticed that the creature looked thin and hungry. He also noticed that there was a small cut on the dragon's left wing, and some of its scales looked dull and lifeless. The animal had clearly been hurt and left alone. "It's okay," Marcus said very softly. His voice was gentle and calm. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Marcus. What is your name, little one?" The dragon made no sound in response. It did not growl or hiss or cry out. It simply tilted its head slightly, as if trying to understand what Marcus was saying. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a protein ration that he had saved from his lunch. He broke off a small piece and placed it on the ground between them. Then he stepped back and waited. The dragon watched the food for a long moment. Slowly, very slowly, it uncurled itself and crept forward. Its tiny claws made clicking sounds against the metal floor. After several minutes, the dragon ate the piece of protein and looked up at Marcus with its bright eyes. "Good," Marcus said, smiling. "There is more if you want it." Over the next few days, Marcus returned to the cargo bay again and again. Each time he brought food and water for the small dragon. He would sit near the creature and talk to it about his life, about the stars he could see from the observation deck, about the Earth he had left behind many years ago. The dragon never responded with words, but it seemed to listen carefully to everything he said. The other crew members on the station began to notice that Marcus was spending more time in the lower cargo bay. But nobody asked him about it. The people on the Meridian space station were busy with their own work and their own problems. They had no interest in a maintenance worker and whatever he was doing in the storage rooms. Nobody cared. Marcus did not tell anyone about the dragon. He kept it as his secret. Every day during his cleaning shift, he would find time to visit the small creature. He would bring extra food from the cafeteria, hiding it in his cart. He would sit beside the dragon and talk, and the dragon would listen. Slowly, something began to change. The dragon started to move closer to Marcus. It no longer flinched when he came near. Instead, it would watch him with what seemed like affection. The cut on its wing began to heal. Its scales started to shine brighter. The dragon was getting stronger, and it seemed healthier and happier. One day Marcus noticed that the dragon was different. It seemed sad, almost mournful. It would curl up in a tight ball and make very quiet, low sounds that seemed to come from deep inside its chest. Marcus understood that the creature was lonely and afraid. It had been separated from its family, and it did not know if it would ever see them again. Marcus sat beside the dragon and put his hand gently on its head. He had learned that this seemed to calm the creature. "You are not alone anymore," he said softly. "I am here with you. You are my friend now, and I will never leave you." The dragon made a small chirping sound and moved closer to Marcus, pressing its head against his leg. Marcus sat there for a long time, not moving, just being with his small friend in the quiet darkness of the cargo bay. He realized that for the first time in many years he did not feel completely alone either. He had someone who needed him, someone who cared about him, even if it was just a small dragon that nobody else even knew existed. Days passed and Marcus's love for the dragon grew stronger. He began to wonder what would happen if someone discovered the creature. What would the station commander do? Would they try to take the dragon away? Would they hurt it? Marcus decided that he would protect this small friend with everything he had. Whatever came next, he would face it together with the dragon he had found in the darkness of the lower cargo bay. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus first found the small dragon in the cargo bay. The creature had grown slightly stronger, though it was still quite small and fragile. Marcus had fallen into a routine with his new friend. Every day during his cleaning shift, he would make time to visit the dragon, bringing food and water, and spending his breaks sitting beside the small creature in the shadows of the storage room. Marcus had started to talk to the dragon more and more. At first he spoke about simple things. He would describe the tasks he had completed that day, or talk about the different sections of the space station. But as the weeks went on, Marcus began to share deeper things. He told the dragon about his childhood on Earth, about his mother who had taught him songs and stories, about his father who had worked hard to provide for the family. He talked about why he had left Earth and come to work on the space station. He spoke about his loneliness, about feeling invisible to everyone around him, about wondering if his life had any meaning at all. The dragon listened to every word. It would tilt its head and watch Marcus with intelligent eyes. Sometimes it would make small sounds, soft chirps or gentle rumbles from deep in its throat. Marcus felt that the dragon understood him even though it could not speak in words. One particular evening Marcus was especially tired. His shift had been long and difficult. 2 crew members had complained about the quality of his work, and the station commander had given him extra duties to complete. Marcus sat down beside the dragon and sighed deeply. He was feeling sad and discouraged. "Sometimes I wonder if I matter at all," Marcus said quietly. "I work every day but nobody notices me. I clean these halls and corridors but tomorrow they will just get dirty again. My life feels like it has no purpose. Do you ever feel that way, little friend?" The dragon moved closer to Marcus and rested its small head on his knee. Marcus reached down and gently stroked the smooth, warm scales on the dragon's back. The creature made a soft, comforting sound that seemed to say, "I understand. You matter to me." That night Marcus could not sleep. He kept thinking about the dragon, about the connection they had formed. He realized that despite all the loneliness and hardship in his life, he had found something precious. He had found a friend who needed him and loved him. Perhaps he thought that was enough. Perhaps that gave his life meaning. The next day Marcus brought something different to the cargo bay. He had borrowed a small music player from one of the other workers, claiming it was broken and he needed to repair it. Instead he brought it to the dragon. He sat down beside the creature and played a song that his mother had sung to him when he was a child. It was a gentle lullaby, with soft notes that seemed to fill the quiet storage room. As Marcus listened to the music, he began to sing along, humming the melody. The dragon listened with complete attention, its eyes half closed, its body completely relaxed. When the song ended, there was a moment of perfect silence between them. Then something miraculous happened. The dragon opened its mouth and a sound came out. Not a growl or a hiss, but something else entirely. It was a sound like nothing Marcus had ever heard before. It was like a chirp, but deeper and more complex. It was a sound filled with emotion and meaning. Marcus gasped. "Did you just try to sing?" he asked in amazement. The dragon made the sound again, this time with more confidence. Then it made another sound different from the first. It was as if the dragon was experimenting with its own voice, discovering that it could make sounds beyond simple animal noises. Every day after that, Marcus brought the music player and played songs for the dragon. And every day the dragon would attempt to sing along. At first, the sounds were just random noises, but gradually they began to form patterns. The dragon seemed to be trying to imitate the melodies that Marcus played. One afternoon, during what seemed like an ordinary visit, something extraordinary occurred. Marcus was telling the dragon a story about the time he went camping in the mountains of Earth. He described the tall trees, the flowing rivers, and the feeling of freedom he had experienced there. "I wish I could take you there," Marcus said softly. "I wish you could see how beautiful the earth is. I wish we could walk together through those mountains and feel the wind on our faces." The dragon looked directly at Marcus and then, very slowly and carefully, it opened its mouth and spoke. The word was broken and uncertain, with strange pauses between the syllables, but it was unmistakably a word. "Marcus," the dragon said. Marcus's heart seemed to stop. He could not believe what he had just heard. The dragon had spoken his name. It had actually spoken his name. "Yes," Marcus said, his voice shaking with emotion. "Yes, that's right. I am Marcus." The dragon made more sounds, and over the next few minutes, it spoke several more words. Alone. Hurt. Scared. Safe. Marcus. Marcus understood immediately. The dragon was telling him that it had been alone and hurt and scared, but that now, with Marcus, it felt safe. Tears began to flow down Marcus's face. He reached out and gently hugged the small dragon. You have a name, he said. I want to call you Ember because your scales shine like fire and light. Is that okay? The dragon looked at him and made a sound that could only be described as a laugh. Then it said very clearly, Ember. Yes, Ember. Marcus sat in the darkness of the cargo bay, holding his friend, knowing that something wonderful and impossible had just happened. The silent dragon could now speak. And with its words, it had given Marcus something precious. It had given him proof that his life had meaning. It had given him purpose. It had given him love. High above the Meridian space station, in a section of space that few humans ever visited, something massive moved through the darkness. It was a creature so large that it could swallow entire buildings whole. Its scales shimmered with colors that did not exist in the normal spectrum of light. Its wings, when fully extended, could block out the sun of a small star. This was Eleanor, the Dragon Queen, and she had been searching for her lost child for many months. Eleanor had received a signal weeks ago, a faint telepathic cry that only a dragon could hear. It had come from somewhere near this human space station, the Meridian. Her daughter, Amber, had been taken from their home world during a terrible storm. Eleanor had searched every corner of known space, using all her ancient power and wisdom to track the small life force. Finally, the signal had led her here. At first, Eleanor had wanted to attack the space station. She had wanted to destroy it and retrieve her daughter by force. The humans had taken so much from her kind over the centuries. They had hunted dragons for their scales and bones. They had captured young dragons and sold them to laboratories and wealthy collectors. Eleanor had every reason to hate the humans and everything they stood for. But Eleanor was patient. She was ancient and wise, and she had lived through many centuries. She decided to observe the station carefully before taking any action. So she positioned herself in the vast darkness of space, cloaking her presence with ancient magic that the humans' primitive technology could not detect. She watched and waited, studying the humans and their ways. What Eleanor discovered surprised her greatly. At first, she observed the station's crew members going about their daily tasks. The humans seemed cold and self-interested. They rushed from one place to another, never stopping to help one another. They made harsh sounds at each other, sounds that the Dragon Queen recognized as anger and frustration. Eleanor thought to herself that these humans were just as cruel and selfish as she had always believed. But then Eleanor noticed something unusual. One of the human workers, a small man with quiet movements, had discovered Ember. Eleanor felt a surge of protective anger. She wanted to rush down to the station and snatch her daughter away from this strange human. But something made her wait. Something made her continue to observe. Day after day, Eleanor watched this human man, whose name she learned was Marcus, spend time with her daughter. She watched him bring food and water to the frightened young dragon. She watched him sit quietly beside Ember, not demanding anything, not trying to capture her or harm her. Instead, he simply sat there, being present, showing kindness. Eleanor had seen many things in her long life, but this simple act of kindness was somehow more powerful than anything else she had witnessed. Most creatures, when they encountered a lost and helpless animal, would either ignore it or try to exploit it. But this human, this small and seemingly insignificant man, was different. He was treating Ember not as a prize to be captured, but as a friend to be cared for. Eleanor began to understand something that she had never truly grasped before. She had always believed that humans were inferior creatures, driven only by greed and power. She had thought of them as simple and primitive. But watching Marcus with Ember, she saw something else. She saw gentleness. She saw patience. She saw love. One night, Eleanor positioned herself at the observation deck of the Meridian, a place where few humans ever went. She used her magic to make herself visible through the thick reinforced glass. She wanted to see the human more clearly, to understand this being who had captured her daughter's trust so completely. Eleanor watched as Marcus brought music to the cargo bay and played it for Ember. She heard her daughter attempt to sing along, making new sounds that the young dragon had never made before. Eleanor felt something warm and strange move through her ancient heart. She was witnessing the moment when her silent child was learning to speak again. When Ember finally spoke Marcus's name, Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. For months, she had thought her daughter might be lost forever, trapped in silence and fear. But this human, this simple cleaner, had somehow reached into Ember's broken spirit and awakened it. He had given her daughter back her voice. Eleanor realized in that moment that she had been wrong about many things. She had believed that strength came from power and dominance. She had believed that intelligence was measured by technology and weapons. But watching Marcus sit quietly in the darkness, holding her daughter, speaking words of comfort and love, Eleanor understood that true strength came from compassion. True intelligence came from the ability to see another creature's pain and respond with kindness. The Dragon Queen made a decision that night. She would not attack the station. She would not take her daughter away from the human who had saved her. Instead, she would reveal herself to this human named Marcus. She would show him that she had been watching. She would thank him for what he had done. But Eleanor also knew that this revelation would change everything. It would bring her kind and the humankind face to face. It would force the humans to confront a reality that they had never imagined. It would require courage from this small, quiet man who had only ever wanted to help a lonely dragon. Eleanor waited for the right moment. She knew it would come soon. And when it did, she would finally reveal herself and begin a conversation that would change the destiny of both species. She would show the humans that they possessed something precious, something that even the most advanced alien civilizations had forgotten. She would show them that compassion was the greatest power of all. Marcus was in the lower cargo bay with Ember, as he had been almost every day for the past month. The small dragon had grown stronger and more confident. Its scales now shone with a brilliant emerald and gold light. Ember could speak simple words and sentences now, and every day its vocabulary grew larger. Marcus would bring books from the station's library and read to Ember, teaching the dragon about history, science, and philosophy. It was a quiet afternoon, and Marcus was telling Ember a story about ancient Earth civilizations when something changed. Alarms began to sound throughout the entire space station. The lights flickered red and white. Marcus heard the loud voice of the station commander coming through the speakers, but the words were unclear and muffled. All crew members to emergency stations. Unknown object approaching the meridian. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Marcus's heart began to race. He held Ember close to his body, trying to calm the frightened young dragon. It's okay, he whispered. We will be safe. Nothing bad will happen to you. I promise. But Marcus did not feel as confident as his words suggested. He had no idea what was approaching the station. He moved with Ember deeper into the cargo bay, hoping to find a place to hide if things became dangerous. Suddenly the entire cargo bay began to shake. The metal walls groaned and creaked under an enormous pressure. Warning lights flashed all around. Then, the reinforced window of the observation deck exploded inward, and Marcus saw something that took his breath away. A dragon emerged through the broken window. But this was not a small dragon like Ember. This creature was massive, larger than any living thing Marcus had ever seen. Its wings stretched across the width of the entire cargo bay. Its scales glowed with colors that seemed to shift between purple, gold, and deep blue. Its eyes were ancient and intelligent, and they seemed to look directly into Marcus's soul. This was Eleanor, the Dragon Queen. For a moment, nobody moved. The massive dragon lowered her head and looked at Marcus and Ember. Alarms continued to sound throughout the station. Marcus could hear the sounds of the crew running and shouting in the distance. He knew that weapons were probably being prepared. The humans would see this enormous creature as a threat. But Marcus did not move. He did not run. Instead, he stood between the Dragon Queen and the rest of the station, protecting Ember. He realized in that moment that he was willing to die for the small dragon he loved. He was willing to stand against anything that might try to hurt his friend. Ember made a sound then, a sound filled with joy and recognition. The young dragon ran forward toward the massive Dragon Queen. Eleanor lowered her enormous head, and Ember touched her snout with her own small head. Marcus watched this reunion with tears in his eyes. He suddenly understood. This enormous dragon was Ember's mother. This was Eleanor, the Dragon Queen who had been searching for her lost daughter all these months. Eleanor turned her massive head toward Marcus. The Dragon Queen's eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made Marcus feel as though his entire body was being examined and judged. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a light began to fill Marcus's mind. It was not painful but warm and gentle. Images and emotions flooded through his consciousness. Marcus saw Eleanor's memories. He saw her searching through endless space for her lost daughter. He saw her arriving at the space station and observing everything that happened. He saw through her eyes as she watched Marcus care for Ember with patience and love. He felt her emotions, her initial anger at the humans, and then her gradual understanding that not all humans were cruel. Most importantly, Marcus understood Eleanor's gratitude. The Dragon Queen was showing him that she knew what he had done for her daughter. She was showing him that she appreciated his kindness and his love. She was showing him that she no longer saw humans as inferior or worthless. Marcus had changed her mind simply by treating one small dragon with compassion. When the light faded from Marcus's mind, he fell to his knees. He was overwhelmed by the experience of connecting with such an ancient and powerful being. Eleanor moved her massive head closer to Marcus, and instead of fear, Marcus felt only peace. "Thank you," Eleanor said. Her voice was like thunder and music combined, speaking directly into his mind and into his heart. "You gave my daughter back her life. You gave her back her voice. You saved her when my own kind had abandoned her. You showed her love when she had known only pain." Marcus looked up at the Dragon Queen. He could see the truth in her enormous eyes. He could feel the sincerity of her words. "She is my friend," Marcus said simply. "I love her." Eleanor made a sound that was like a gentle rumble, and Marcus realized the dragon was crying. Tears the size of water droplets fell from Eleanor's ancient eyes. "You have taught me something I had forgotten," Eleanor said. "You have shown me that true strength does not come from power or weapons. True strength comes from the ability to love another creature, even when that creature is different from you. True strength comes from kindness." Ember moved between her mother and Marcus, as if to show that both of them were important to her. Marcus reached out and gently touched Eleanor's enormous snout, just as he had touched Ember so many times before. "What happens now?" Marcus asked quietly. Eleanor turned her head toward the broken window, toward the space beyond, toward the universe that awaited them. "Now," she said, "we change everything." Commander Harrison sat in the secure chamber deep within the Meridian space station, watching the enormous dragon through multiple video feeds. His hands trembled as he held the communication device. Around him, military advisors and scientists were shouting orders and suggestions, but Harrison felt strangely calm. He had been studying the dragon's behavior for the past few minutes, and he had come to an important realization. The creature was not attacking. It was not destroying. It was simply standing there waiting. "Hold all weapons fire," Harrison commanded firmly. "I repeat, hold all weapons fire." "Commander, we should attack while we have the opportunity," one of the military officers insisted. "That creature could destroy the entire station with a single movement." Harrison shook his head. "No, something is different here. This is not an attack. Stand down and wait for my order." Harrison made his way to the main observation deck, the place where the dragon had entered the station. As he arrived, he saw something that shocked him. Standing between the enormous dragon and the rest of the station was Marcus, the station's maintenance cleaner. And beside Marcus was a small dragon, clearly much younger than the massive creature before them. Harrison watched as Marcus reached out and touched the enormous dragon's snout. He could see that the man was not afraid. There was no fear in Marcus's body language at all. Instead, there was respect and affection. Slowly, Marcus turned and walked toward the observation deck where Commander Harrison was standing. The small dragon, Ember, followed close behind. Eleanor, the Dragon Queen, did not move or attempt to follow them. She simply waited, her massive eyes watching everything that happened next. Marcus entered the observation deck and came face to face with Commander Harrison for the first time in many months. Harrison had seen Marcus around the station occasionally, a quiet worker who kept to himself and rarely spoke to anyone. But now, as Harrison looked at the man before him, he saw something different. He saw courage and wisdom and purpose. "Commander," Marcus said quietly, "I need you to understand something. This dragon, Eleanor, and her daughter Ember, they are not our enemies. They have come here with peaceful intentions. Eleanor has been searching for her daughter for months. When I found Ember, she was alone and frightened and unable to speak. I cared for her because she needed help. Eleanor has been watching us the entire time. She has learned about us. She has learned that humans can show kindness to creatures who are different from us." Commander Harrison listened to every word. He was surprised by the clarity and intelligence in Marcus's speech. This man, who had always seemed invisible and unimportant, was now speaking with an authority that could not be ignored. "What does the Dragon Queen want?" Harrison asked. "She wants peace," Marcus said. "She wants to establish a relationship between our two species. She believes that humans and dragons can learn from each other. She has already learned from us, from watching me care for Ember. She has learned that compassion and kindness are powerful forces." Harrison made a decision. He picked up his communication device and spoke to all the crew members on the station. "All military personnel, stand down immediately. All crew members, remain in your quarters. We are about to engage in first contact with an intelligent alien species. There will be no violence. There will be no weapons. We will attempt peaceful communication. Over the next hours, something remarkable began to happen. Eleanor communicated through Marcus, sharing her thoughts and her feelings with the humans on the station. She spoke about her world, about the Draconic Collective, about their advanced technology and their ancient wisdom. But most importantly, she spoke about what she had learned by watching Marcus care for Ember. Your species possesses something that my people had forgotten, Eleanor said, her words coming through Marcus's mind and then translated aloud by the station's communication systems. You possess the ability to love without demanding anything in return. You show kindness to strangers. You care for those who are weaker than yourselves. These are not signs of weakness. These are signs of true strength. Commander Harrison ordered the station's best scientists and diplomats to begin formal negotiations with Eleanor. They met in the main conference room, a space that had to be enlarged and reinforced to accommodate the Dragon Queen's massive size. Eleanor proposed a treaty between humanity and the Draconic Collective. She offered to share advanced technology and scientific knowledge. She offered to protect human settlements from cosmic dangers that humans could not yet perceive. But in return she asked for only one thing: respect and friendship. The negotiations went on for many hours, but they were successful. By the end of the day, the first treaty between humanity and dragons had been signed. It was a treaty based not on fear or dominance, but on mutual understanding and respect. As the sun rose over the planet below the meridian, Commander Harrison stood with Marcus, Ember, and Eleanor on the observation deck. The massive Dragon Queen looked out at the stars with ancient eyes. You have changed history today, Eleanor said to Marcus. You have opened a door that can never be closed. You have shown your people that courage is not the same as aggression. That strength comes from compassion. That the measure of a civilization is not its weapons, but its capacity for love. Marcus looked at Ember, who was now curled up peacefully between her mother and him. The small dragon was complete now, reunited with her mother, able to speak and to be understood. And Marcus was no longer invisible. He was recognized as the human who had bridged two worlds, who had brought peace where there could have been war. I only did what felt right, Marcus said humbly. Eleanor smiled, an expression that transformed her ancient face into something beautiful and wise. Yes, she said. And that is exactly why you succeeded. You followed your heart instead of your fear. And because you did, everything has changed. Everything will be different now. Eleanor extended one enormous wing, and Marcus stepped forward and rested his hand against it. In that moment, the old age of isolation and misunderstanding between species came to an end. A new age of cooperation and friendship began.